develop into an essay, and then we're going to correct the essay. And those of you who could make it are gonna pass, and those who couldn't, so you know the answer. Okay, is that clear for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes,
now, now look. Again, the question that your friend asked me, maybe a mistake on this, but I still remember that she also asked me about the assignments and whether I need to keep giving you assignments that you can develop into essays. And look, guys, it's not necessary for me to provide you with prompts that you can write essays on. That's something you need to do on your own. That is. Every day, every couple of days, every week, you need to write an essay, an argumentative essay, without having me providing you with a topic to write on. And again, remember, you are too many. Your number, that is the number of students in my class, exceed, I guess, 80 students, and therefore, for you to write essays and send them to me, and me having to read them and provide you with feedback is a little bit difficult. Especially, I don't have hard copy of your essays. I'm gonna have to deal with all of that using my laptop, and to spend too many, that is much time reading material from the laptop is really would strain my eyes, and it would cause me lots of trouble. And therefore, there is always a way out. One of the possibilities that you have available is for you to choose one of your partners, someone you can trust. You write your essay and you exchange your essays, and you provide one another with feedback. And in case there is something that you do not understand, you can ask me and I'm going to help you. Again, all I can do as far as providing you with feedback is concerned, all I can do is to take a sample essay, one in which I can clearly notice that it contains lots of problems, lots of trouble, common errors that students usually make, and I'm gonna try to highlight those areas and show you how you can overcome them. This is one way I can solve this issue, but for me to read everyone's essay, as you can imagine, it's a bit difficult and something that I cannot do. Okay, so now let's turn to today's focus. The focus in today's meeting is gonna be cohesion and coherence. And I don't know whether you have this clear understanding of the difference between what cohesion is and what coherence is. Can somebody please step in and give me an idea about what we mean by cohesion and coherence? Did you get my question? Yes, please. Did you get my question? Are you still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so we hear people talk about cohesion, coherence, but I'm pretty sure that some of you still do not understand what is cohesion, what is coherence, and what the difference between the two is. So this is again something we need to focus on and try to understand in this meeting. So this is my first question to you. Can somebody just, what is your understanding when you hear them? I'm not expecting that you would provide me with the right answer. I'm not after the right answer. What I would like to know is, what is your perception? What is your understanding of these two concepts, cohesion and coherence?
I think it's when the paragraph should be smooth and the ideas should be combined together and have a meaningful idea. Okay,
that's a good start. But again, when we say cohesion and coherence, do we mean that we're referring to the same phenomenon? We're talking about the same thing, or maybe there is a difference between these two concepts? What do you think?
I think they are the same, kind of the same.
Okay, good. That's again a good start. Some people consider cohesion and coherence the same thing, the same phenomenon. But again, if you dig deeper, you are gonna notice that cohesion and coherence are not the same thing. There is a basic difference between the two. As you can see from the paragraph that you have on display on the current screen, maybe they are treating them the same, but at a certain point in the development of this paragraph, the author of the text is trying to make a slight difference between what cohesion is and coherence, okay? I would like somebody please to read so we can see what is going on in this paragraph and try to understand the difference between these two concepts. Somebody please to read. Cohesion and coherence is?
Sir?
Yes, please.
Can I read?
Just go ahead, go ahead.
Cohesion or coherence is the intangible glue that holds paragraphs together. Having good coherence in a writing project means that your ideas stick together and flow smoothly from one sentence to the next, so that readers of your work can easily understand where you are taking them. Without cohesion, a written work can seem choppy and may not flow well. A lack of coherence challenges the reader and can hurt comprehension, thus rendering your attempt at communication ineffective at best. We will look at...
Okay, that's it. So let's just focus on the first paragraph. Based on what your friend has just read to us, this paragraph, does it make a distinction between cohesion and coherence, or does it regard them as the same thing? Yes, no question. Is it the same, different? We have this interesting metaphor that is likening cohesion and coherence as a glue that holds text together, that holds paragraphs together. And when we read this first sentence, we can clearly understand that the author is considering cohesion and coherence as the same thing. Remember again, this is what we started with. I said that some people consider these two concepts as referring to the same phenomenon. But it's better to distinguish those subtle differences between what we mean when we say cohesion and what we mean when we say coherence. Look, the point where the author is trying to help us make a difference between cohesion and coherence is this context where he talks about without cohesion, a written work can seem choppy and may not flow well. A lack of coherence challenges the reader and can hurt comprehension. So what can we take home from what is going on in this paragraph? When we talk about coherence, here we are talking about a level that pertains to comprehension, meaning a text that lacks cohesion is a text that may cause comprehension to fail. Because when you write, remember, writing, it's a social activity. And when I say a social activity, it is communication between two different parties. It is communication produced by a writer and conveyed to a particular reader. Remember, when we talk about writing, it's not only you that is the writer that is of concern here, but we are also concerned with the reader. When you're writing, you need also to bear in mind that there is an audience, and that audience has a particular profile. Whether you are dealing with, I don't know, experts in a particular field, or you want, for example, just to address the layman, again, depending on the genre that you are dealing with, whether you're writing a letter, or whether you're writing a business report. So we have different parameters that we need to pay attention to. Now, when we talk about cohesion, when we talk about coherence, we're talking about understanding, we're talking about comprehension. If the text is not coherent, look, the adjective for cohesion is cohesive, and the adjective for coherence is coherent. So if the text is not coherent, the problem is one of comprehension. You're going to cause the reader to get overwhelmed. But when we talk about cohesion, we may have a text that is cohesive, but it may not be coherent. Cohesion is more visible. And usually we make a text cohesive using certain visible tools, that is linguistic tools that we get, linguistic resources that we obtain from the language itself. For example, when we talk about linking words, like linking words of concession, linking words of contrast, of comparison, of addition, and so on, and the list goes on. We have so many of them. When we use these, because they are explicit markers, explicit indicators of cohesion, then we're talking about cohesion. And as I said, you can have a text that is cohesive, but if the ideas does not stick together, if the ideas are not coherent, you are going to cause the reader to get lost. That is, the reader is going to get frustrated, is going to get overwhelmed, and comprehension is going to be heard as the text, as the paragraph that we are dealing is telling us. So is it now clear what we mean by cohesion and coherence?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
So to recap, cohesion is depends, is contingent upon visible markers like, as I said, linking words, and also we have another technique that you may want to use, and that is what we call repetition. Here we're not talking about the kind of repetition that is when you don't find other alternatives, other possibilities, you just stick to the same words and you keep repeating them over and over again. This is not a good practice. I'm talking here about this balanced use of repetition that would help the reader to keep focused on the point that you are developing in your paragraph and the point that you are developing in the whole essay. So here we're talking about repetition as something that is positive, because there is another kind of repetition which is called redundancy. Redundancy is when you keep repeating the same words over and over and over again, which is going to mar the text, which is going to spoil the objective of the text that you are developing. Okay, so when we talk about coherence, we have two different tactics. And when we talk about cohesion, we're talking about two different tactics. And these 4 different tactics are going to be the focus of this meeting. So let me scroll a little bit down and show you the 4 tactics that we're going to be concerned with in this meeting. The first is relevance. And then we're going to talk about order. And then we have linking words. And then we have repetition of keywords. Look, the first two techniques, relevance and order, have to do with coherence. And the second 2 techniques have to do with cohesion, that is linking words and repetition of words. Here you are at the level of cohesion. So let's take each one at a time and try to understand them more fully. Let's start with relevance. I need somebody, please, again, to read what we have in this paragraph so we can understand it better.
Sir?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Go ahead.
A simple way to build cohesion or flow between sentences is to look at the meaning of a sentence and compare it to the point of the next sentence. They should be related yet not the same. If the 2 sentences are not closely related, you will lose the reader's attention because they will have to guess where you are going. If the 2 sentences are identical, you are not adding any new information to your work and the reader will be annoyed.
Great. Now, the first thing I would like you to pay attention to is this idea of meaning. When we talk about relevance, here we're talking about the level of meaning. We're talking about semantics. Okay, and again, this is an important point that we can also use as a benchmark to differentiate between cohesion and coherence. Coherence is at the level of meaning. Cohesion is related to meaning, but it's not 100% meaning. For example, let's say we're dealing with a particular paragraph, and when you read this paragraph, you feel that there is a sentence or 2 sentences that do not fit in. That is, the context where these 2 or 1 sentence are used is not a good context where they should be used, and therefore it's either they need to be relocated somewhere else in the paragraph, or maybe they should be taken out of that paragraph and placed in a different paragraph in your essay. Or if you feel that those sentences, that sentence or those sentences do not fit altogether in the essay that you are writing, you'd better just remove them, because they're gonna spoil the smooth flow of your essay and are gonna cause cohesion to get hurt. So this is an important thing that you need to bear in mind when you want to compose argumentative essay. So again, here the focus is on meaning when we talk about relevance, and in particular, this paragraph is concerned with 2 problems that arise as we're gonna try to activate this concept of relevance. What are the 2 issues that this paragraph wants to bring to our attention? Focus on, I guess, the last sentence. It's the 2 last sentences, the 2 couple of sentences. It's there where the text, where this paragraph is talking about 2 issues, 2 problems associated with relevance, if we are not careful.
The sentences should be related.
So when we talk about relevance, that is, again, remember, when you have a paragraph, you have a sequence of sentences, one sentence after another and another, and so on and so forth, until you finish your paragraph. Now, this sequencing of sentences, the relationship between one sentence and the other, of course, there should be some relevance, there should be some relationship, there should be some connection between the two. Because if there is no connection whatsoever, then here we have this problem of not relevance, but the problem of irrelevance. That is, the idea that you are embedded within that context is causing a lot of trouble for comprehension. And therefore, it needs to be, as I said, relocated or removed from the text altogether. Now, the two problems that this paragraph is talking about is this. It's either we have two sentences that are too different, or when we have two sentences that are too similar. And these are two different extremes. And therefore, as a good writer, you need to strike a balance. You need to locate yourself at a middle ground place between these two extremes. So let's try to have a concrete example which would elucidate what I'm talking about here. Now, let's take the first situation where we have two sentences, a sequence of two sentences that are too different. That is, the difference between the first sentence and the one that follows it is so blatant that it's clear that they do not stick together. That is, we don't have a smooth flow of ideas. Okay, again, somebody please to read the example we have here and try to analyze it.
Sir?
Yes, go. Yes, please.
Antigone's motivation is family duty, even if it means death. She must rebel, which will cause an uproar. The consequences don't matter to her. This would also explain why she rejects Isman's support later in the play. They both have different motivations. Isman has nothing left to lose and wants to go out with a glorious bang.
Okay, so as you can see here, the problem is with the red font, because it is that area where the reader fails to comprehend what the writer is trying to say. Here we are talking about Antigone's motivation, the fact that Antigone's motivation is family duty, even if it means death. And then all of a sudden, abruptly, suddenly, there is a move to talking about she must rebel, which will cause an uproar. The consequences do not matter to her. This would also explain why she rejects Ismin's support later in the play. So here this idea of Ismin's support and the relationship between Ismin and Antigone is not clear from the text. We need some explicit indicator that would help us to see the relevance of this second sentence and the connection it has with the sentence that went by, the sentence that is preceding. Now, to resolve this problem, we need to do this. So here we have the same example. Can you see all of it? Is it clear for everyone? Let me just move it a little bit to the side. Okay, here we go. Can you again reread this same example, but rectified, so we can see the relationship now is visible between sentence one and the following sentences. Somebody please to read.
Sir?
Yes, please.
Antigone's motivation is family duty, even if it means that she wants to rebel, which will cause an uproar. The consequences that don't matter to her. In contrast, her sister Isman has completely different motivation for her action and wants glory, which explains why Antigone rejects her support later in the play.
Now, if I want you to compare the first paragraph with the second paragraph, which is more or less the same thing, but in the first one, the visibility of the focus in the paragraph was not good. But in the second one, the visibility is great, is clear. That is, we're here focusing on one particular thing. This thing I would like you to point out to me. So what is now the focus in the paragraph based on the second example, that is the rectification of the problem? Of course, we are comparing Antigone with Ismin, but we're comparing them on what characteristic? What is this thing that we're comparing these two individuals on?
Their motivation.
Great. We're comparing Antigone's motivation with Ismin's motivation. Now, if I scroll up again and try to compare the second paragraph with the first one, in the first paragraph, was it clear enough for you that here we're comparing the motivation of Antigone with the motivation of Ismin? Was it as clear as it is in the second example? Of course it's not. Of course it's not. So this is what we mean by relevance. Okay, now the problem that I highlighted in the first instance is when two sentences, sentences that one follows the other, but the problem is that they are too different, and we need some marker that would render the relationship between these two sentences clear enough for us readers to understand what is going on. Now, let's see the second instance when the two sentences that follow one another are too similar. It's like you are just repeating the same thing. You are not saying anything new. Somebody please again to read the example we have on the current screen.
Aristophanes exaggerates Socrates' intelligence in a humorous way. Aristophanes portrays Socrates' intelligence as a tool of humor. He makes Socrates use his intelligence to make a mockery of people. Aristophanes makes Socrates appear very brash in the use of his intelligence.
Okay, good. Right. Now, again, the highlighting of the second of every second sentence in red indicates that there is a problem. Now, if we compare the first sentence with the second one, Aristophanes exaggerates Socrates' intelligence in a humorous way. Compare this with Aristophanes portrays Socrates' intelligence as a tool of humor. What difference is there between these two? Again, to put my question in a different way, has the second sentence added anything new to us as reader? Is there any new information related to the second sentence vis-a-vis the first one that we read first?
No, sir, I don't think so.
No, sir, there is no.
Absolute. It's like you are looking in a mirror. Like
Yes.
you're looking in a mirror. It's the same thing, exactly the same thing. Same situation applies to the second example. He makes Socrates use his intelligence to make a mockery of people. Aristophanes makes Socrates appear very brash in the use of his intelligence. Again, the third sentence and the fourth sentence are exactly the same thing. Now, the question that we need to ask is, why repeat exactly the same thing? What is new about what you are saying? There is nothing there that is new, and therefore we need to avoid this malpractice because it's not good. We need to avoid it. That is, whenever you need to write a second and a third and a fourth sentence, those sentences should bring about something new to the discourse that you are composing. If you are just writing exactly the same thing that you wrote in the first sentence, in the preceding sentence, then you need to understand that that's a problem that you need to avoid. Now, let's see how this is rectified. Let me keep them together so we can compare the two. Now, again, somebody please to read the same paragraph, but now those repetitions, those unnecessary repetitions have been trimmed away. Somebody please to read and then talk about this.
Sir, Aristotle exaggerates Socrates' intelligence in a humorous way. The playwright makes Socrates' use his intelligence to make a mockery of people, being very brash in the process.
So now can you see what is going on here? In the first example, it's clear that we are repeating the same idea over. But in the second instance, that is when the paragraph has been trimmed away, those issues, those problematic issues have been trimmed away, we can now see a paragraph composed of two different sentences that run smoothly. That is, we don't have any redundancy, any unnecessary pieces of information. Is it clear for everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes,
great.
sir.
Fine.
Yes,
Now, remember, here we're still talking about coherence, the level of meaning, the level of semantics. And we are now done up with the first technique that you need to pay attention to when you want to write and you want to create coherence in your writing. Now we're going to move on and start talking about order. talking about order, we don't have only one way in which we can order, in which we can arrange text. That is the ideas, the propositions that we include in our essay. There are so many different ways we can do this organization. It could either be chronological, as you can see down here. It could either be chronological, talking about this place here. You can see it. Chronological, it could be a cause and effect relationship. It could be a clarification. It could be compare and depending on what your purpose is. Okay, now, so to fully understand what order is, let's read this paragraph and try to understand it in much more effective ways. Again, somebody please to step in and read the paragraph.
Can I read? Can
Yes,
I read,
please.
sir?
Please. Yes, please.
Writers should always ask themselves, is this sentence relevant to the idea of this paragraph? Every paragraph should have a main idea.
Stop there a second?
Yes.
This is very, very important. There is nobody who can make this decision as to whether or not a sentence in a particular context, in a particular paragraph, is fitting or not fitting. It's you, the writer, meaning you should always be asking yourself the question, does this sentence in this paragraph fit? That is, does it flow smoothly with the rest of the ideas in the paragraph? That is, there is nobody who can decide on that but you, except you. And therefore, that's a good question that you always need to ask. Again, when you submit your writing to an expert writer, an examiner, a teacher, it's going to be so easy for them to point out that a sentence or two are not befitting within a particular context of a paragraph. And therefore, ask the question before other people ask the question on your writing. Please continue.
Typically stated in a topic sentence, to maintain cohesion, all sentences within a paragraph should relate to this main idea. For example, if you are writing a paragraph on why nuclear power plants are an efficient, clean way of generating energy, it may seem out of place to then reflect on a way a dog's quack does not echo and the resulting social implications. More often than not, these sentences are important to your paper, but need to be moved elsewhere in a separate paragraph or just recollected within the same paragraph so the sentence order is logical.
Okay, thank you. Good. Now, can somebody say the same thing that is that this paragraph is telling us, but in a different way? What is your understanding? What is your take? Of course, except for the first couple of sentences, because I already explained that to you. I'm talking about from to maintain cohesion, all sentences within a paragraph should relate to this main idea. Okay, so somebody please to explain to us from that point until the end of the paragraph. What is going on?
When we write an essay about a topic, we should include sentences that are related to that.
Okay, good. Do we have another answer? Yes, please.
Sir?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
I think that when we want to write an essay, we must know how to make sentences linked to each other to create a coherent relationship between them, which gives us an coherent essay in a logic organized in a logical way.
Yes, good, great. Yes. Another answer. I felt like somebody in the background wanted to say something. Maybe it's a boy, I guess. But it seems to me that you have some poor internet connection. There is a lot of disruption in the line. I can't hear you well. I can't hear you. Can you hear your friend, guys? The others, can you hear him?
No, sir. No, sir.
Maybe the place where you are doesn't have good bandwidth. So anyway, I'm gonna explain that to you. So remember, we can look at the essay that is as a whole like a paragraph. Okay, because a paragraph, it's an essay in miniature. The same elements that we have in the essay as a whole, we do have it in the paragraph. So what is an essay about? It's a thesis. That is, either you are arguing for or are arguing against something. So a thesis is what? It's an idea that you are defending, or an idea that you are saying things against. All of the paragraphs that would come later are gonna stick together in support for that particular idea, for that particular thesis that you started out with. Now, let's zoom in and talk about the paragraph. What is the paragraph? A paragraph is composed of different types of sentences. The first type of sentence we need to talk about is what? I'm pretty sure you know it. What is it?
Topic sentence.
The topic sentence. And all of the sentences that you have in the paragraph are going to revolve around that topic sentence. Now, how do I know that a particular sentence doesn't fit within the paragraph?
Should be relevant.
What's that?
It should be relevant to the topic sentence.
That's the point. If you feel that a particular sentence in that particular paragraph does not stick to the topic that is being stated in the topic sentence, then you need to remove it. You need to again make a decision if that sentence maybe is befitting, is relevant somewhere else in the essay. You relocate it to that particular position. But if you feel that it doesn't fit altogether in the essay, you'd better just forget about it, just drop it out, okay? Because it doesn't fit within the topic that you are developing. So this is what we mean by order. What is order? What does order have to do with all of this? Remember again, when you are developing a paragraph, it's not only a paragraph, it's even the essay. But let me first talk about the paragraph. When you are developing a paragraph, there is always a sequence of events. There is some kind of logical, this is very important, logical sequence of events. One sentence breeds another sentence, and another sentence breeds another, and another, until you finish writing your paragraph. Now, if this order is disrupted by a sentence that maybe should be moved first or maybe should be left until later, then we have a problem of coherence, because we are still talking about coherence, and it pertains to the second technique that we're talking about, which is order. Again, we have different ways we can enact this idea of order, either chronologically, based on a cause and effect relationship, based on a clarification process, or a compare and contrast relationship. Now, let's see a few examples to understand what I'm talking about here. I would like somebody, guys, to read the example that you can see on display.
Sure.
Yes?
Sir. Then there was another meeting with Satan, who said if Job's body was tested, Job would sin against God. The three friends, Eliphaz of Teman, Zophar of Nam.
Just read whatever. These are fictional beings. Then it's not really important to pronounce them correctly. Just go ahead.
Bildad the Shua came to try and console Job. The three saw then that Job was stricken with disease and his.
Now, my question to you is this, and maybe something that you've already perceived, you've already felt. When you read this paragraph, do you have a sense of time? That is the connection between one event and another, one idea and another, in terms of chronology, in terms of timing. Is the picture clear for you to understand or not?
No, sir, no.
So it's difficult to figure out the chronology of events in this paragraph. Now compare this with this. Okay, with this one here. Somebody again to read.
Sir,
Yes, please.
there was another meeting with Satan who said if Job's body was seated, Job would then sin against God. When Job was later stricken with disease and suffering greatly, his three friends, Eliphaz of Timman, Zophar of Nama, and Bildan of Shua, tried to console him.
How about now? How about now? Now, does it make sense? Do you have this sense of time?
Yes.
Yes, sir. It makes.
Yes,
It's
sir.
clear that
Yes, sir.
when you read this one, there are some ideas there that you can understand, but the whole is difficult to understand. But when you move on to the second instance where we have the situation is resolved, we can clearly see, especially with the addition of when, later. These are two time indicators, and they have imbued the paragraph with a sense of chronology. Now we can understand the sequencing of events. We understand what is first and what is second in this paragraph. So this is one first dimension, one important parameter that we need to bear in mind when we talk about order. Order is very important because it adds to building coherence in our essays. Now, let's see the second example where we're going to talk about cause and effect relationship. Again, somebody please to read this paragraph.
Sir,
Yes, please.
The detective tried to gather more evidence by going to the store to ask Mr. McDougall what he knew about the murder. He did this because when he had asked the Davidson maid what she saw at the scene of the crime, she mentioned McDougall.
Okay, good. As a reader, look, because the reader, as a reader, when you read a particular passage, a particular book, paragraph, or whatever, you don't read it as a blank slate. That is, you are not empty of background information, knowledge of the world. That is, whenever you read something, you read it and you try to understand it based on your background information. Because without that background information, it would be impossible, utterly impossible to understand anything. Understanding is only possible because we have this background knowledge. Meaning, when you read this first instance here, it is possible for you to use your background information to try to find that there is some cause and effect relationship. But the problem is that the writer did not provide you with any assistance, with any aid to figure out this cause and effect relationship between sentence 1 and sentence 2. Again, as a writer, when you write text, you need always to bear in mind that the reader would be put in the face of lots of trouble trying to understand what you are trying to convey to them. And therefore, you need to assist them, you need to help them with all that is available to you to make life easier for them, to make it easier for them to understand. Now, this is exactly what is going on in the second paragraph, which is again just a replica of the first paragraph. Somebody please to read.
The detective talked to the Davidson maid and asked her what she saw at the scene of the crime. She mentioned the local store owner, Mr. McDougall. So the detective then visited McDougall to gather more evidence.
So here, what did we do? Because we know that the cause and effect relationship is, there is a logical sequencing of events as far as cause and effect relationships are concerned. We need to start with the cause and then we move on to the effect. It is possible, because language is flexible, it is possible to start with the effect and then move on to the cause, but here you need to use special language devices, a certain linking word that can help you to do this. But if you do not have this linking word, it is better to start with the cause and then move on and mention the effect, because always the cause comes first and the effect comes second. Now, this is it. So now we are done up with the two techniques that we need to bear in mind when we want to create coherence in our essays. These are relevance and order. Let's recapitulate. Let me ask you this question. What do we mean by relevance? What can you still remember from our discussion of relevance?
Sir?
Yes, please.
Relevance is about the meaning. The focus of the relevance is the meaning.
Yes, good, good. Can you add more? That I'm asking your friends, the others. Can you add more information about this?
Sir,
Yes.
the writer should always ask him or herself if this information will add value or not.
Two problems that we tapped on as we were talking about relevance is this idea of when two sentences are put in succession in a row, one after the other. We have two different extremes, two different situations, and both of them are problematic. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is relevance. This is relevance. So we have two different extremes. It's the first is when we have two sentences in a row that are too different, and if they are too different, it's gonna be too difficult for the reader to comprehend the text that you are writing. And the second situation, the second extreme, is when they are too similar, meaning you are not adding anything new, and therefore this is again a problem that you need to eliminate from your writing. Again, we moved on to talk about order. We saw that talking about order, speaking of order, we have different ways we can do this. It's either chronologically, cause and effect, clarification. We have other ways. It's not only these four, but we have other tactics that we can use. But these are just a sample, a specimen that you need to bear in mind. Now, we're going to move on and start talking about cohesion. As I said, cohesion relies on explicit markers, visible markers, like linking words that we're going to start talking about right now. Now, please, somebody to read the example that we have here. Somebody to help me out.
As one can see, early in the history of the United States, most pollution was created without regard to the environment. Different private groups have taken steps towards preserving nature, including conservationists and environmentalists.
Okay, good. Now, again, based on our background knowledge, we can compensate for the lack of an explicit linking word that would help us to see the relationship between sentence one and sentence two. Let me try to activate this background knowledge in you. If you read this paragraph and you are asked to identify the relationship between sentence one and sentence two, what kind of relationship is this between these two sentences? What is it?
Sir?
Cause and effect.
Let me see. As one can see, early in the history of the most pollution was created without regard to the environment. Different private groups have been. Okay. Yes, could be. It could be because there is a problem, and what is this problem? It's a problem of pollution. Okay, inflicted upon the environment, and as a result, that is, if you want, for example, to use consequently or as a result or something of the like, different private groups have taken steps. Good. We can also do it in a different way. We can also use however, because we have a problem, but that problem wouldn't persist because there is certain activists, environment activists, who would take steps to rectify the situation, to fix the problem that we have in hand. Okay, so it's either cause and effect or an issue of contrast, one idea that is opposed to another idea. Let me just scroll down and show you how this is done in the example we have here. Again, somebody please to read.
As one can see, early in the history of the United States, most pollution was created without regard to the environment. However, different private groups today have taken steps towards preserving nature, including conservationists and environmentalists.
And environmentalists. Good. Now, look, we don't have only one linking word that was included in this paragraph, but we have two. We have however and we have today. However is clear. That is, we have one idea and in one sentence, and we have an opposing idea in the following sentence, and that's why we are using however. Now, why did we use this today? Is it necessary? Yes, it is necessary. Because if you read the first sentence, what do we have? As one can see, early in the history of the United States of America, we're talking about the past of the United States of America. We're not talking about its present. And therefore, when we moved on and started talking about the situation right now, we needed a time linking word that would indicate that we are anchoring our talk about pollution and how we can do about it in the United States. We are anchoring this in the present time. That's why we are using today. Today have taken steps towards preserving, etc., etc. So can you see now the utility, the usefulness, the importance of linking words like however and today?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes, sir.
So this is as far as what? This is as far as, let's see, the first example is concerned. As you can see down here, we have different categories of linking words. And this is, if you want to get more of them, you can go to these sites. By the way, I'm gonna upload this document again, either in Moodle or in Microsoft Teams. You can download it to your desktop and read it at leisure. And you can visit these sites to get more documents, more information about linking words. So as you can see here, we have different categories of linking words, those of addition, like also, again, besides, etc., etc. And then we have those of result, generalizations, introducing examples, emphasis, similarity, exception, restatement, contrast, order, summary, etc., etc. Now, I would like to seize the opportunity to highlight an important error that most students commit when they use linking words in their essays. Do you know, guys, what this problem is? I'm pretty sure you are already familiar with it. What is it?
The overuse of linking words.
That's the problem. Thank you. Because they look so beautiful. Look, we have so many interesting linking words that you may wish to include in your paragraph, but if you use too many of them, you are causing your text to be problematic. Because we need to use them, but in a balanced way. Now, the question that you might be tempted to ask me is this: if I want to reduce the number of instances where I use these linking words, how can I continue to create cohesion and coherence in my text? Again, guys, you need to understand that we don't have only this idea of linking words as a technique to create cohesion and coherence in your text. We have so many other techniques. We've already talked about relevance. We talked about sometimes just the ordering. That is when you put one sentence after the other, and the connection is so clear between the first sentence and the second sentence. That is, without the help of a visible linking word, the reader can understand what is going on between sentence 1 and sentence 2. In this case, no need for you to use the linking word. You use the linking word only when you feel that there is some ambiguity and the reader would not be able to understand what is going on in the paragraph. It is only then where you are supposed to use an explicit linking word. If you are doing it in this way, be sure that the way you're going to go about using linking words in your text, in your argumentative essay, is going to be balanced and effective. Okay, did you get this, guys?
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Good. So now we're going to talk about another technique. Do you have any question? I feel that somebody wanted to ask a question.
Sir, please, I can see nothing on the screen.
So I'm going just to get out and in again so you can see what is going on the screen. Okay, just give me a few seconds. Okay, how about now?
No, thanks, sir.
Still nothing?
It is clear for us.
No, I see. Thank you, sir.
Okay, good. Okay, so let me now scroll down. Again, so number 4 is repetition of keywords. Again, this is very fundamental in relation to avoiding the overuse of linking words. Remember, linking words should not be overused. If you overuse them, you are creating a lot of trouble in your essay. The examiner is not going to judge the essay as being good quality essay based on the number of linking words that you are using. It might appear to you to be a good thing, but for the reader, for the examiner, it's not going to be valued. It's not going to be judged as something that is positive. Okay, it's gonna be taken as something that is negative. Now, another important strategy in addition to relevance and order that you can use to avoid the use of linking words is repetition. But again, remember what I said about repetition. We have 2 different types of repetition. One type of repetition is positive and the other type is negative. The negative type of, that is the type of repetition that is negative is called redundancy. Are you familiar with this VOC? Redundancy? What does it mean to you?
Repetition?
What's that? Yes, it's repetition, but it's negative. Okay, now I'm tempted to compare.
Repetition of the words that you can replace, sir.
It's unnecessary repetition. Yeah. You are. Let me give you a very, very interesting example, and this example can only be possible if we compare English with Arabic, standard Arabic. In English, we have this tendency to avoid redundancy. But the problem is that in Arabic, redundancy is something that is positive. It is a discursive that is al-balagha, that is from the point of al-balagha. It is something that is highly positive in Arabic. That's why usually in Arabic, when you read text in Arabic, you find that the writer uses, let's say, a series of verbs which to you would mean the same thing. أوضح وأبرز. Do you understand? In the same context. And when you read it in Arabic, it looks like it is something that is positive. Let me give you another example. Are you familiar with Surah Al-Rahman?
Yes,
Just
sir.
the beginning of it.
Yes, sir.
Of course,
Yes.
I can't recite it. I'm not just. I'm pretty sure that you've already read this surah.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
There
we
is
did.
something that is conspicuous about Surah Al-Rahman. What is it?
Yes,
So
the
the
repetition of the
Excellent.
Yes.
Now, my question to you is this: when you read Surah Al-Rahman, do you feel bored when you finish reading this surah? You feel bored?
No.
No, sir.
No, not at all.
It feels great. Although we have one verse, one ayah that is repeated over and over and over and over again, but you never feel bored because repetition in Arabic is a sign of intellect. It's a sign of erudition. But in English, it's the opposite. If in English you have an example like Surah Ar-Rahman, it wouldn't do because it's gonna be considered as redundancy. You are just repeating the same thing over and over again without any clear purpose. Do you understand the idea?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here the kind of repetition that we're talking about in number 4, it's not redundancy. You repeat words, it's only because it is necessary, it is prerequisite. It adds to the understanding of the text and it helps the reader to hold onto the focus of your writing. Now, let's read the examples and try to understand what we mean by repetition that is positive. Somebody please to read the first example. It's a little bit long.
Many problems in the economy are impacting the restaurant industry. The factor responsible for most of these negative impacts is the economic recession. Due to weak economic conditions, the U.S. food service industry revenues will only rise 2.5% in 2008 compared to the 4.5%.
can you just wait a second until I just give a little bit of explanation for the first few lines?
Yeah, sure.
Now, look, many problems in the economy are impacting the restaurant industry. So what is this? What is this?
The topic sentence.
That's the topic sentence, meaning all of the sentences that would come after should revolve around the topic that is being developed in this topic sentence. Now, what are the two key words that we have in this sentence? We have economy and we have restaurant industry. Did you hear what I said?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So these are the two keywords. It's not only economy and restaurant industry, but also we have this idea of we're talking about the economy as it relates to restaurant industry, but not from a positive side, but from a negative side. We're talking about problems that impact restaurant industry economy. Okay, now let's read the second sentence. The factor responsible for most of these negative impacts. Now, the word impact, although this is not highlighted, but I would like to draw your attention to it. In the first sentence, the word impact, how was it used in your opinion?
As a verb, sir.
Excellent. In the second sentence, is it still a verb or now it assumed a different syntactic class?
It's a noun.
It's different.
It's a noun. Now, when you change, that is when you use a particular word in the first sentence in a particular part of speech, and then in the following sentence, you turn that part of speech into a different one. Here you are repeating, but is it visible repetition? Is it visible repetition? That is, does it affect the reader's reading of the text in a negative way?
No, sir. No.
No, sir.
It doesn't. Now, suppose you are using impact in the second sentence and you are using it as a verb, not as a noun. Here you may cause the reader to doubt your abilities in writing. That is, you may encourage the reader to feel like you are not a good writer. That is, you have run out of, let's say, vocabulary that you can employ to vary your style, to vary your lexical items, and therefore you need to be careful. So, in the first sentence we used impact as a verb, but in the second one we use it as a noun. This is another tactic that is not mentioned here, but we need to pay attention to it. Now, look. We're talking about problems related to the economy, and this economy that we're talking about is related to the restaurant industry. In the second example, we're repeating the word economy. You have this idea of economy. But again, did we use economy as a noun or as an adjective?
As an adjective in the second.
But in the first one, we used it as a noun.
Noun.
So can you now see the kind of repetition that I'm talking about? It's repetition, but used in a diplomatic way, in a tactful way, so the reader wouldn't perceive that there is some kind of repetition there. Did you get this?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Very good. Now the following sentence: due to weak economic conditions. Again, we are using economic, but to the reader, it wouldn't feel like it's something that is negative. That is, I would continue to use economic, economy, economics in different ways, and this would have this repetition, but at the same time it helps to keep the reader focused on the main thing that the paragraph is trying to develop. Yes, please, can you please continue reading?
Restaurant Association reports this to be among the poorest sales performances by the domestic restaurant industry in nearly 4 decades. Basham, 2008. In response to the weak economic conditions, restaurants are increasing prices only enough to offset higher costs rather than to expand profit margins. Basham, 2008. Also, unemployment in the United States affects restaurants with rates reaching 5.3% in 2008 compared to 4.6% in 2007, Basham, 2008. The government has also made costs difficult for restaurants by increasing the federal minimum wage to $7.25 in 2009, Basham, 2008. Finally, consumers are traveling less, which is lowering restaurant sales. Travelers and visitors accounted for a median of 15% of sales at quick service restaurants. At this time, the weak economic conditions have had a major impact on the food service industry.
Well, great. Now, again, sometimes we have the same thing is repeated again and again. If we, for example, check out weak economic conditions, maybe this is repeated twice or three times. But although it is repeated twice or three times, as a reader, I don't feel like it's something that is not good about this paragraph, okay? Because it was done in a tactful, diplomatic way. Some words were used that indicate that we are still talking about the economy, but in a different way. For example, the word poorest. Okay, the poorest sales performances. Here we are using poorest, and when, for example, we talk about poor and rich, we are talking about the economy. Okay, these are words that lie within the jargon that we employ to designate the economy. Again, here we have difficult for restaurants, we have restaurant sales. Again, the restaurant industry. Instead of saying the restaurant industry, here we are using, can you see the last one that I'm highlighting? Food service.
Industry.
Food service industry. When you say food service industry, what are you talking about? You're talking about restaurant industry. So repetition is good, but you need to use it in a tactful way. You need to be good at it. If you repeat the same words over and over again without being clever about doing this, then you're gonna just create a lot of redundancies in your paragraph, which might cause your paragraph to lose a lot of interest on the part of the reader. Now, this is again what we're talking about, to avoid needless repetition. And again, when we say, can you see what I'm talking about here? Because I scrolled down.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. So to avoid needless repetition, this is what I'm talking about. This is what we mean by redundancy. That is, unfortunately, most students are in the habit of indulging themselves in needless, unnecessary repetition, and that is something you need to avoid. Okay, and you avoid that only by collecting lots of vocabulary. That is, you need to develop your capacity to have for each word you need to have 2 or 3 synonyms. Because when you get to this level, then be sure that you're not going to be trapped in this problem of needless repetition. Now, let's read this example and see how we can manage. That is how we can get out of this problem of repeating words that are unnecessary in the text. Somebody please to read this one here.
As You Like It was a universal play that, when set in modern times, still makes sense and can capture an audience. The play As You Like It uses modern customs, props, and interactions with the audience to relate the story to our time.
So our focus in this paragraph, as you can see, is As You Like It, because As You Like It is a title. It's a title of a play. That is what we understand from the beginning of sentence number 2. So As You Like It was a universal play. And then in the beginning of the second sentence, the play As You Like It uses modern costume. What's the problem here? That is something it's easy to see. What's the problem there?
They clarified that As You Like It is a play, and they should mention just the play. They should mention the title of the.
There is an unnecessary repetition, I guess.
Good. Both answers are good. One possibility is to use the word the play. As your friend said, if you say the play, it's good. But we have another better, because when you say the play, the word play is already employed in the first sentence. Look, As You Like It was a universal play. But again, if you use the play, it's still good. The problem is in the third, fourth, fifth, and the other sentences that would follow, if you continue to use play again and again, then you would have a problem. And therefore, you can use a different strategy instead of using the word the play. The play as you like it. What is it, guys? What is it? Let's see. Let me see whether you can get it or not.
We can use the pronoun.
Pronoun.
Too simple. You use a pro form. Pronoun, like it. Okay? And this is exactly what we have here. As You Like It was a universal play that, when set in modern times, still makes sense and can capture an audience. You use simply it. It uses modern costumes instead of repeating the play as you like it. Okay, so in the first instance, the repetition of as you like the play as you like it was unnecessary. It's a redundancy. It doesn't add anything good to the paragraph. On the contrary, that is, it spoils the quality. It mars the quality of the paragraph. Now, let me see here. This is again something that is important that we need to pay attention to. This is a warning. Can you see what I'm talking about here? Let me just highlight it so
Yes,
you
sir.
can understand what I'm talking
Yes,
about.
sir.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, the use of proforms or pronouns can at times be tricky. Do you understand why they could be tricky? Read what I'm highlighting in blue and tell me why I'm saying that sometimes the use of pronouns can be tricky.
Warning, be sure the reader will know what it, he, that, and other pronouns mean.
And so what is the problem here? What problem you might get into if you are not careful about the use of pronouns?
The problem we would face, sir, that when we don't know which pronoun refers to which noun.
Yeah,
Excellent.
the misposition of the pronoun.
And you can get into this problem. You can run into this problem, especially when you use what type of sentences, guys? Okay, let me ask you another question, related question. Is it possible to run into this problem if you are writing, that is, if your style is based on simple sentences, short sentences?
No.
No, you wouldn't have this problem.
No, we
You
don't.
wouldn't have.
Complex.
It's not. Look here. Look again. I can't hear you. There is disruption in the line. I can't hear you well. But anyway, I'm gonna just explain this to you. I would like you to distinguish between two important things here. The first is simple sentences, and the second is short sentences. Can you tell me what is the difference between the two? What do we mean by a simple sentence and what do you mean by a short sentence? Do they mean the same thing? Are they different? If they are different, in what way?
Sir?
Yes, please.
I think a simple sentence is when we have a subject, a verb, and maybe a complement. While a short sentence, it can be a complex sentence, or and it can be short.
Excellent. That's the right answer. I don't want you to mistake me when I say use short sentences for saying that you need to use only simple sentences, because that's wrong. Again, if you continue to use in your essay simple sentence after another simple sentence after another simple sentence, your style is gonna be not good, not exciting for the reader to read, and therefore you're going to fail to grab the reader's attention. And therefore, you need to use short sentences that could be in the form of complex sentences, compound sentences, and complex compound sentences. Now, the question that you may ask is, are you still there, guys? Are you still with me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes certain students, unfortunately, a good number of students, instead of using short sentences, they keep using lots of wordings, lots of embeddings, especially when you use lots of relative clauses, which, who, whose, and then it's like a labyrinth. Instead of writing a sentence, you write a labyrinth. Do you understand what is a labyrinth?
No, sir.
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Have you watched the film Maze Runner?
Yes, we did.
Okay, so what is a
Yes.
maze? What is a maze? Because the film is based on this maze. What is a maze? A maze, it's an area, an enclosed area. If you get into it, it is very, very tough to find your way out of it. That's what we mean by a labyrinth or a maze. And if you watch the film, it's about a group of kids who would get into a maze and they need to get out of it, because if they do not get out of it, they risk their lives. This is what the film is about, if you still remember it.
Yes.
Very good. So this is what I'm talking about. When you don't write short sentences, when you write too long sentences, it's like you are creating a labyrinth for the reader. And when you do, sometimes when you use a particular pronoun, it becomes difficult for the reader to either decide whether that pronoun has to do with the immediately preceding noun, or the one before, and so on and so forth. So this is again that I'm trying to warn you against. When you use pronouns, be careful. Make sure that the pronoun that you are using has a clear reference in the text, and that the reader would find it easier to get that reference, that antecedent. Is it clear for everyone again?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. If you allow me, just about 2 days ago, I was browsing the net and I came across a book, and I was amazed. I was baffled by the simplicity of the style in it and the shortness of the sentences that the writer uses. I'm going to open it and show you what I'm talking about when I say that you need to use short sentences, not simple sentences. Just give me a few seconds. Here we go. Let me just now display it on the screen. Okay, can you see now the book that I
Yes.
put on the current
Yes, sir.
screen? Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you can see up here, the book is by Francis Collins, The Language of God. A scientist presents evidence for belief. It's a good read. If you have some time left, just download it from LibGen. It's available on LibGen. Read this book because it is interesting. This is a scientist who wrote this book, and he's talking about language encoded by God in his creation to communicate with human beings. And especially he's using here the language of science. That is how we can understand God, how we can know God through the world around us. That we have in the Quran. I don't have the verse well in my mind. Now, what is of interest to us is this. Look at the language. Look at the language. Somebody please to read this paragraph.
I was raised on a dirt farm in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. The farm had no running water and few other physical amenities.
Can you wait a second? Guys, do you know what are we talking about here? We're talking about a scientist. A scientist, meaning that is, what would you expect when you get a book written by a scientist? The first impression that you will get is that it's gonna be too complex to understand. Look at the sentences that he is employing. Are they too long? Do we have lots of which, whose, in which, where? We don't have. Very short sentences, clear, and they keep the reader focused. They make it so easy for the reader to read the text. Okay, please continue. Go on.
Yet these ideas were more than compensated for by the stimulating mix of experiences and opportunities that were available to me in the remarkable culture of ideas created by my parents.
Okay, in these sentences, that is, do you have any difficulty understanding the text? Do you have any vocabulary which might cause you to fail to understand what is going on in this paragraph?
No, sir.
No.
No.
Very simple style. This is the kind of style that I would like you to write your essays, that is to model your essays on. Very simple language. Again here, another context. But other advisor in the Roosevelt administration had other ideas, and the funding soon dried up. The ultimate dismantling of etc. So very short sentences, focused, so you can help the reader to understand the text that you have written. So this is just a parenthesis that I'm going to close right now and go back to our main dish. Don't know where I put that. Maybe it's this one. Okie dokie. So the final note that we're going to close talking about cohesion and coherence with is this. You have to understand that writing, it's not a product. This is an issue that lots of research has been done on. Writing, it's not a product. Your interest as a student trying to develop skills of writing should not be on the final product, because I'm pretty sure that when now you write an essay, it's gonna be full of problems. But don't be concerned with the problems that you have in your hand at that particular moment, because what should be of interest to you should not be the product, it should be the process, because you are in a process of acquiring writing skills. Now, how can we enhance the quality of our work? Engaging in this concept of taking writing as a process. When you write, it is always good to send your writing to someone to read. And again, it's either you create a group of 3 or 4 students. If you can't, just partner up with one of your friends, someone you can trust. Send them your work, and he or she should send you his or her work. Read that particular piece of writing, see if there are any problems. If there are problems, write them down and send them to your friend to draw his or her attention to them. In this way, you are going to support one another, you're going to scaffold one another. If you continue doing this over a certain period of time, I don't know, by the end of the semester, by, I don't know, the end of a year's or 2 years' time, be sure that you're going to, you're going to get to a level where you will write with ease and no problem. Writing will be just a piece of cake for you. Okay? So please, I highly recommend that you continue to write. Don't wait for me to give you a topic to develop into an essay. This is a wrong attitude. Write essays, exchange them between you. And again, if there are any things that you do not understand, or there is some ambiguity that you are not sure with, then you can ask me. You can send me questions either on Microsoft Teams or Moodle, and then I'm gonna try to answer your questions like I do with most of your friends who ask questions. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now we have spent something like 1 hour and 14 minutes. We're going to skip. We're going to leave it until next time. That is talking about formulaic expressions. We're going very briefly to have a look at an essay that was written by a student. Look, this essay is not the best that can be done, but it has those qualities, those standards, which would accord it a good grade. And that is what you should be after. That is what you should be concerned with. Okay, so let me put it up. So you can have an idea about what I'm talking about. Let me again check it out. This is it. Here we go. Okay, I would like each student to read a paragraph. Somebody please to begin with the first paragraph. Look at the style. Of course, it's not complex. It's not that of an expert, but this is a student like you who is writing this essay. So please, first paragraph, someone to read.
Technology has highly evolved over time. In fact, nowadays, almost everybody has some sort of machine at hand, be it computers, car, or even washing machines. But although machines were devised to benefit mankind, it has also brought along many flaws to match.
Okay, my question to you is this. When you read this paragraph, do you have any issues related to understanding, to comprehension? That is, did you fail to understand what this student is trying to write about?
No, sir.
So in your opinion, before we go on reading the rest of the essay, what is the thesis of this essay? What is it?
Technology has highly evolved over time.
Okay, but look, this sentence, it's a technique that I would like you to develop. There, we haven't yet started talking about our thesis. That's like background information. Everybody knows that technology has highly evolved over time. If you ask your little brother or your little sister, he would say yes. There is lots of technology around us where we live. So this is just a background statement. Technology has highly evolved, has highly developed over time. But where is the thesis of the essay?
The pros and the cons of technology.
Good, but in what sentence did the student writer make his move and put forth his thesis?
But
Sir,
all the
I
machinery.
think it's in the last sentence of the paragraph.
Excellent. Look at the beauty of it. Look at the beauty of it. But because sometimes we are so explicit, so visible in our writing. What do you mean by being visible in our writing? It's when you say, in this essay, I'm going to talk about the advantages and the disadvantages of technology in the world where we live. It's good, it's good. But the problem is it's too explicit. There are other ways you can do that that are far less visible. One way is the one that we can see in this paragraph. Look, but although in one sentence, by creating contrast between one idea and another, this student writer has crafted a well-developed thesis for his argumentative essay. But although machinery was devised to benefit mankind, what do we have here? What is he trying to convey to us? Hello there?
He's trying to convey to us the positive side of technology and
the positive side. We're talking about the benefits of technology for mankind. And then in the rest of the sentence, what is the move? What is the rhetorical move that he made? It has also brought along many flaws to match. Flaws. What are we talking about here?
Disadvantages.
Negative side.
Excellent. But what can you remark there? What can you observe? Neither did he mention advantages and disadvantages, nor did he mention pros and cons. But he employed different terminology, different vocabulary, and still he was successful in crafting his thesis. This is what I would like you to do, guys. This is how I would like you to write. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Now, okay, now let's see what we have in the following paragraph. Somebody please again to read.
Firstly, when it comes to technological equipment, such as computers, disruption most often arises between the person using the computer and the household he or she is surrounded by or living with. For example, many old family traditions, such as eating meals with your relatives at the dining table, seldom take place now that one of the family members might be too busy working on his Mac laptop. Thus, family values and morals have changed in order to adapt to this technological age.
Good, great. Now, if you are to identify the topic sentence for this paragraph, what is it?
When it comes to technological equipment, such as
Continue. Yes, please. Okay, so you're right. You're right. This is the topic sentence. And is he talking about positives or negatives here in this paragraph?
Negative side.
It's one of the negatives, about one of the disadvantages of technology. And again, before he started writing the paragraph, look at the linking word that we have there. Firstly, these are very important words that you need to employ. Here you are imposing chronology on the sequencing of events, on the sequencing of ideas, on the sequencing of paragraphs in your essay. Very important to remember using first, second, third, fourth, finally, or firstly, secondly, thirdly, lastly, or last but not least. Lots of expressions that you can use. Okay, these are very important because they help you to create order, to create organization in your essay. Now, look at the following sentence. Having identify one of the problems, one of the flaws associated with the use of technology in modern times, he moved on to talk about, to give an example. For example, this is good, very good. Look, when you are given an essay to write on the day of the exam, sometimes you feel that you are short of ideas. Try to expand your horizons. Look at what is going on around you. Sometimes there are ideas just where you live, in your family context. Here, the student was clever. Instead of going far afield, looking for examples, he just looked near him or near her to give us an example from his own family. And here he's talking about many old family traditions, such as eating meals with your. This is something we can observe. This is something we witness in our households. Usually, you find the father with his smartphone connected to, I don't know, Facebook, the mother to WhatsApp, the kids to, I don't know, Instagram, and the kids, I don't know, playing games. And this affects social cohesiveness. This causes the family to fall apart. That is, there is a gap, there is a rift between family members because of social media, because of technology. And this is exactly what this student writer is talking about. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, look at the last sentence. Thus, meaning he provided us with a topic sentence. First, he started with firstly. Then he provided us with a topic sentence. He gave us an example. And then he wanted to give us the conclusion. Because when you say thus, you are drawing a conclusion. What is the conclusion? Thus, family values and morals have changed in order to adapt to this technological age. Very interesting move, very good move. Do you appreciate that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
good.
sir.
Somebody please to read this paragraph. Secondly,
having many kinds of machinery at hand is not only destroying family traditions, but is also very harmful to our environment. Many people are careless about allowing their car engines to run haphazardly or leaving their laptops on for long periods of time. However, they do not seem aware of the fact that all this energy and electricity consumption is dangerous to not only our local environment but to the world as a whole. Additionally, it is the overusage of machinery, big or small, that is bringing our society ever closer to global warming, and we must stop.
okay, good. Again, look at the smartness of, at the intelligence of this student. In the first paragraph, what did he talk about? I'm talking about this one here. No. Here, what did he talk about?
Let's say that he is talking about the social part of using machine.
The social disadvantages of using technology in our world. But here, what other aspect did he raise in the second paragraph?
About environmental
environment.
Environment.
Great. Now he's no longer talking about technology as it relates to family households, but now he moved on to start talking about what? The environment, the impact that machinery, that heavy machinery like cars, like lorries, like other stuff, the impact that it has on our world. And here he's referring to an important global phenomenon. What is it? Global warming. That's why I'm saying that you can feel the smartness. It's like he's moving from things that are immediate to him in his proximity, family issues, and now he's broadening his horizon. He's moving outside of it to talk about broader issues like the environment. So can you see the development of the argument?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Now, please,
Yes.
another one to read this one here.
As I mentioned in my introduction, technological equipment was never programmed to damage nature per se, but to help people around the globe. Now that nuclear families aren't as closely intact compared to the 1960s, 50s to or 1990s. Technology has given us an alternative method to keep in touch with our relatives thanks to computer applications such as Skype or even cell phones applications such as Viber or WhatsApp. Machinery has most definitely done wonders in our lives, and we as people should be grateful to easily process cars and or phones when poorer countries do not even have the chance to.
Now, can you see now what is going on in this paragraph? What is the move? What is this rhetorical move that the student writer made? Is he still talking about the negatives?
No, the benefits of
So here he's talking about the counter argument, because the argument that he started with is what? Technology is problematic. Technology causes us a lot of issues, a lot of trouble. And he mentioned 2 examples. But in the 3rd paragraph, he changed tack. He changed attitude. He's no longer talking about technology as a negative. He's talking about it as a positive. And what is this positive thing about technology that he's talking about here? The social aspect of it. Although it's a little bit contradictory, because remember in the 2nd paragraph, what did he talk about?
He talks about the negative side of it on the environment.
It's not the environment I'm talking about, because we have introduction, we have a 2nd paragraph. The 1st paragraph in the body.
He talks about the separations that technology causes.
And that's the social dimension.
Yes.
So in the 1st paragraph, he is saying that technology separates us, alienates us. But in paragraph 3 in the body, he's talking about technology as a glue that brings together family members, especially because now we no longer live in the nuclear. Etc. This is what we call by the extended family living in the same household. Now, what he is saying is this. He is saying that thanks to technology, because now we have the nucleus family, the nucleus kind of family, we can continue to keep in touch with one another thanks to the use of applications like Skype, WhatsApp, Viber, etc. Now, let me just bring this up again. Okay, can you see what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Oh, before we move on to the last paragraph here, that is the conclusion. Having read this essay, have you been able to identify, to spot out any error that this student made, grammatical, lexical, of any other kind, semantic, etc.? Did you notice anything that is wrong with this essay?
No, sir.
No.
Okay, so absolutely not. The essay is clean. Okay, it's error-free, argumentative essay. Now, let's read the last paragraph, and with that, we're going to bring this meeting to an end. Somebody please turn.
However, with all the advances machinery has brought to us all, I personally believe that proposition too much cars or phones, or even consuming too much of their energy in battery is beginning to get out of hand and needs to be controlled.
What is this? What is this? Can you explain to me what is going on here?
Teacher?
Yes?
I have a question. We can start a conclusion by however?
Yes, good. Why is he using however there? Because remember, I'm focusing here on what? I'm focusing on the body of the essay. The first paragraph was about one of the negatives of technology. The second one was also about one of the negatives of technology. And what is this? This is the argument. The argument. Remember what did he say in his thesis? Although technology is good, but it has problems. This is his thesis. And therefore, he started first with what? With one negative, and then he moved on to another negative. But then in the third paragraph, he tried to show us that technology is not negative altogether. There is some beam of light, there is some beam of hope in technology, there is something good about it. But then again, when he finished his essay, he went back to his original thesis, which is, although technology is good, it has problems. That's why he is saying, however, because in the preceding paragraph, what did he say? He said that technology is good because it brings us together. We can continue to communicate with one another, although we are far apart. That's why in the conclusion he said, however, with all the advantages machinery has brought to us, I personally, what is this I personally? He is expressing his position.
Personal
Good, his attitude, his opinion, his view. I personally believe that possessing too many cars, too many phones, or even consuming too much of their energy and battery is beginning to get out of hand and needs to be controlled. This is his position. What do we understand again? It's like he's putting technology, the pros and cons of technology on the scales of a balance. But where did he lean towards the end? Did he lean towards the advantages, or did he lean towards the advantages? Disadvantages or advantages? Based on the conclusion.
Teacher.
Yes.
I would say that it's just a kind of prescription of how to use technology.
But when you read the conclusion, where would you situate the attitude, the opinion, the view of the writer vis-a-vis technology? Does he lean more towards its positive side, or does he lean more towards its negative side?
He's leaning to the negative side.
Negative side. It's like a conversation. It's like a conversation that you are having with some of your friends in a cafe. You begin first by saying technology is bad because of this. Again, technology is bad because of this second thing. But again, I'm not someone who would say that technology is negative altogether. There is a little bit of that is a few positives about technology. But then again, because of the many negatives that I mentioned at the beginning, I'm more comfortable with the argument that we need to do something about technology. We need to curb it. We need to limit it because it's getting out of hand. It's like a conversation between people in a cafe. This is what an argumentative essay is about. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm gonna upload this sample essay onto Microsoft Teams, as well as the documents upon which we base today's online meeting. Now, if you have any questions, just let me hear them.
Yes,
if not, just we can call this a day and then meet up next time, inshallah. Any questions, just let. Yes, please. No questions?
No, sir. I don't have any questions.
No, sir.
Thanks for the session.
No.
Okay, so thank you for your attention. Thank you for your interaction. Let me say that you've been great today, like the other times, and I hope to see you in good shape next time. Bye-bye.